So please help me to welcome the Managing Director of the next Einstein Forum, Natalie Munyampenda.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. To start off, we're going to go right into the panel. We have an hour, so we want to make sure we're getting the best out of it. I'm going to call our panel forward, and after that, we'll hear some important remarks from Honorable Ouattara, who's the minister from Burkina Faso. So let me call upon Honorable Adja Fatimata Ouattara, Minister of Development of the Digital Economy and Post of Burkina Faso, to come forward and have a seat. As well, I will call upon Honorable Joseph Musheru, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology from Kenya. I will also call upon Michel Bézi, Associate Director of Carnegie Mellon University, Africa, and Janet Longmore, Founder and CEO of Digital Opportunity Trust. And last but not least, Wambuyu Kinya, Chief Strategy Officer of Andela. Now this panel, as we heard a few minutes ago, will try and delve into multiple areas. We'll be talking about the kind of skills that we require as a continent on the digital space, but not just at a higher level, so those who are doing creation, but also for our children who are graduating and who are using technology maybe for the first time, and how we can accelerate this. But before we get into that, on va écouter des choses très importantes de la ministre, particulièrement à vos efforts au Burkina Faso et aussi par rapport à la région aussi. Je vous invite, Madame, de dire quelques mots. Merci.
Merci, Madame le modérateur, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs de délégation, Mesdames et Messieurs les représentants des organisations internationales et interafricaines, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs, le Burkina Faso est honoré de prendre part à ce segment de haut niveau sur les emplois et les compétences numériques pour une société digitale. À mon nom et en celui de ma délégation, je tiens à exprimer ma profonde gratitude aux plus hautes autorités du Rwanda et au secrétariat exécutif de l'Alliance Smart Africa pour les excellentes conditions de travail mises à notre disposition. Mesdames et Messieurs, je dois dire que le renforcement des capacités humaines et institutionnelles est un aspect essentiel du référentiel de développement de mon pays. Et aussi, vous conviendrez avec moi que la capacité des entreprises africaines à innover, à fournir des services de qualité et à se positionner dans la chaîne de valeur mondiale dépend dans une grande mesure de leur investissement dans les plateformes TIC, mais aussi et surtout de la qualité des hommes et des femmes qui créent des produits et des services innovants adaptés aux besoins de nos populations. À un moment où nous sommes résolument engagés dans la société de l'information, où nous sommes engagés à prendre part activement et de façon contributive afin de créer une économie numérique compétitive au niveau mondial, il est essentiel de construire progressivement une masse critique de personnes compétentes dans notre région, capables de soutenir, de porter et de réaliser notre ambition du tout numérique en Afrique. Distingués chefs de délégation, Mesdames et Messieurs, le numérique n'est plus une option et c'est la raison pour laquelle nous devons accélérer son intégration dans tous les secteurs socio-économiques afin d'améliorer l'éducation par la e-éducation, la santé par la e-santé et aussi la bonne gouvernance par l'implémentation dans nos États du e-gouvernement. Ainsi, nous devons faire en sorte que l'inclusion numérique soit progressivement une réalité tangible et qu'aucun Africain ne soit laissé en marge de cette révolution technologique. En tant qu'acteurs politiques, il nous appartient de nous assurer que nos concitoyens possèdent l'éducation nécessaire pour participer et tirer profit de façon significative à la société de l'information et de ses nouvelles opportunités socio-économiques. Distingués participants, il s'agit pour nous de travailler à développer les compétences et de promouvoir l'innovation au quotidien, surtout pour la jeunesse, afin de faciliter la création de nouveaux emplois par une prolifération de start-up et relever ainsi le défi du développement économique durable. Mesdames et Messieurs, le volet renforcement des capacités de l'Alliance Smart Africa, assuré par le Burkina Faso, tient compte de l'ambition de nos États d'aller résolument vers le tout numérique et s'inscrit dans une vision holistique du renforcement des capacités humaines et institutionnelles, tout en mettant le focus sur la formation des jeunes et leur employabilité. Afin de nous donner les moyens d'y parvenir, l'Afrique doit se mettre déjà dans une posture de financer elle-même, et cela est capital et très important, la formation de compétences techniques. Ainsi, quelques pistes de financement peuvent être exploitées, en plus, bien entendu, d'une augmentation sensible des budgets alloués au numérique et à la formation technique et professionnelle. Il y a aussi les fonds du service universel mis en place par nos États qui doivent contribuer à former des compétences africaines au profit de l'économie numérique. Aussi une partie des droits d'entrée des licences pourrait aussi y être affectée. Et ces nouvelles ressources seront l'expression concrète de notre choix d'être des acteurs dans la société de l'information et de faire du numérique un levier de notre développement. Aussi, nos étudiants devront sortir désormais des universités et des écoles supérieures avec des qualifications de haut niveau et des certifications TIC dans toutes les formations. Nous devrions les spécialiser ou au moins les initier dans les domaines émergents tels que l'Internet des objets, les big data, la blockchain, l'intelligence artificielle et j'en passe. Un effort au niveau de chaque pays doit être fait pour augmenter conséquemment le nombre de professionnels TIC qualifiés et disponibles pour soutenir la croissance et la transformation structurelle de nos économies nationales. Distinguées personnalités, à cet effet, le Burkina Faso, dans son rôle de leader du volet renforcement des capacités de l'Alliance Smart Africa, a entamé l'élaboration d'un avant-projet de stratégie nationale et africaine pour le développement des compétences au service de l'employabilité des jeunes et le développement des nouveaux métiers du numérique. Et cet avant-projet pourrait faire l'objet d'un séminaire international de validation que nous souhaitons organiser à Ouagadougou, au Burkina Faso, au mois de novembre prochain. Et je voudrais donc inviter, à travers l'Alliance Smart Africa, tous les partenaires potentiels, les États membres, les structures de formation, le secteur privé et tous les acteurs du monde éducatif à bien vouloir se joindre à nous pour la réussite de cette initiative. La contribution et l'implication de l'ensemble des pays membres est importante pour l'atteinte des objectifs. Distinguées personnalités, pour que notre continent ne soit pas en marge de la société de l'information, nous devons évoluer rapidement de la passivité à l'activisme et aussi de la défensive technologique à l'offensive technologique pour la transformation digitale de nos économies. Et l'initiative Smart Africa est donc pertinente et je réitère tous mes remerciements aux membres pour l'honneur fait à mon pays, le Burkina Faso, en lui confiant le volet renforcement des capacités, composante majeure parce que notre ambition de la transformation digitale de notre Afrique intelligente doit être portée par une masse critique d'Africaines et d'Africains compétents et outillés. Et tout en rappelant donc le rendez-vous de Ouagadougou en novembre prochain, je souhaite une très bonne réunion à Kigali. Vive la coopération régionale pour une transformation digitale de notre économie. Et je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Merci, Madame la Ministre. Je ne vous ai pas introduit. Madame la Ministre a une maîtrise en réseau informatique de Humber College au Canada. Et depuis qu'elle a été nommée ministre, elle a déjà commencé à faire beaucoup de choses. Ça inclut fiber optic loops, 13 déjà à Ouagadougou. Vous travaillez sur les infrastructures qu'il faut. Et vous avez aussi organisé le Open Government Open Forum au Burkina. On vous remercie. Honorable Mouchero, you are the Cabinet Secretary in Information and Communications. You were the first Google employee in Sub-Saharan Africa and the Google lead, the Sub-Saharan African lead. And you have experience particularly in the business side from Stanford and the University of London, College London. And I want to know from a government perspective, because there is the debate between how do you, with limited resources, help your young people grow up with technology, so in inserting technology at a young age, as well as creating the type of industries that are led by people who are on the higher end of skills. How do you manage this resource constraint, and how has Kenya been doing it?
Thank you very much. It's never easy as government. The resources are required for very many aspects, but at the core of any interactions you have with citizens is education. If your citizens are not educated, if your citizens are left behind in terms of how global trends are happening, then you will not move far. Our budget for education is fairly significant in our country, and a huge component of that is also on the digital side. First, we've looked at the country as a whole. Technology drives a lot of our industries now, and therefore, even in the manifesto from our president and the ruling party, we are a digital country. And therefore, we work very hard to ensure that the whole country is digital. We've started with at primary school level, standard one. We've provided what I call laptops or tablets for these kids so that they can be able to start using technology at the beginning. We had started with actually laptops and moved on to tablets because laptops are almost feature devices, whereas tablets are where we are headed. It's a smart device. And what I've seen and the experience we've seen is that the kids at that early age are able to use these devices, whether they come from the remotest parts of the country or in the most urban and most well-off places. It equalizes. I use an example of where I used my first computer when I was 18 years old. I then was able to not only set up a company, I even worked and brought Google into Africa. I'm expecting that those kids that are starting now at the age of 6, 7, they should be able to create their own Googles, Microsoft, Intel, and so on. So we've got that end, but government itself, we have the challenge of even our workforce being fairly analog and not digital. They are fairly inexperienced. So with the president, we created what is called a presidential digital talent program, where we took interns from universities, 400 at a time. In partnership with the private sector, you induct them, they go and get trained by the private sector, and we're talking of multinational local businesses, and within government, they get the skills that they need that they can now impart even within government. We can send them to the county governments so that we can begin to use technologies and get them to work. One of the key technologies we use is IFMIS. This is the financial management system across county and national government. If you don't have the right skills, these technologies are not used, and therefore you don't create the jobs that are required in this area. So it's very broad, but it is not an option. We must invest in it in a big way.
I'm interested in the challenge between demand and supply. You know, at a country level, we're trying to bring up our workforce to a digital workforce. We're trying to get our young people into the digital age, and we're trying to make sure we're creating the type of industries that come from creation or advanced knowledge in technology. But what are we creating this for? What is the demand side of things? Kenya is quite advanced in terms of this, and I'm interested to find out what kind of industries. You have Silicon Savannah. Are you happy with where it is now, and what can be done to make sure that we're doing all this level and producing the type of talent that can run a Silicon Valley? As Professor Bezi is going to talk to us a little bit later, infrastructure is not enough. Not having a location is not enough. So what is the roadmap for the government of Kenya?
The roadmap is on several steps. So first, we've said we're going to, in the education sector, provide the training and the basic skills that are required. But at the same time, we want to create the work. If we look at government, an efficient, open, and proactive government is what we need to be able to service Kenyans. Without technology, we're not able to do that. So we look at, say, our land registry. In order to make sure that the title deeds and all the activities that go on with lands are effective and done well, we must inject technology. In offering services, whether it's passport registrations, IDs, and all these others, technology is at the heart of all these. So we already as government are requiring very skilled people to come and run these systems. Cybersecurity, of course, is one of the key challenges that any government or any system has. So you want to make sure you have the right skills and people in the system to be able to provide the services and innovate. So as government, we're demanding the skills, and therefore we want to train people so that they can come and help us become more digital and be able to service our customers, our citizens even better. The second thing is that Kenya wants to be the freelancing headquarters of the world. What does that mean? Today, there's a lot of digital jobs already available online with different marketplaces, Upwork, MTech, and so on. We are training our young people who have left university and are out there on the skills that they would need, whether it is translation skills all the way to design and architectural skills that they can actually use online to be able to service the rest of the world also. Because in the rest of the world, there's a lot of demand for humans, and in fact, the artificial intelligence and automation, all that is coming in because there's not as much people as required, which means we need to be on the cutting edge. Recently, we've set up a task force on distributed ledgers and artificial intelligence in Kenya because we've seen that that is an area we must grow and expand in. That is where a lot of jobs will come and where we need to ensure that our workforce, which doesn't have as much work today, is able to get decent work that pays well but creates all the innovations that we need.
And on the regulatory side, because my experience with the Next Einstein Forum has been that the continent does not have very good regulation around technology. We're 5 steps behind where we are, where there's effort. And so how are you going to be the freelance, how can me from Rwanda come and open up something and bring my technology? How is the regulation keeping up? I'm interested in the regulatory framework, and not just for Kenya, but what is happening at the continental level to help these young people that you're trying to create industries to be able to cross over to different countries and compete.
Regulation is good, but in my experience with technology, the absence of regulation creates a lot of innovation. And sometimes in these areas where you're not so sure about where things are going, regulation should follow, as opposed to starting with the regulations. M-Pesa, which is one of our key, I would say, innovations as a country, came in because the regulations had not been put in place. Had they put in the regulations, we would not have seen those innovations. The same thing is probably going to be said as far as blockchain, cryptocurrencies, all these things. So when there is no regulation, I think private sector should quickly innovate because regulation will definitely follow. The policies we're putting in place as government is to say, you go out, you're creating like a sandbox. You go out, experiment with these things, but we will protect the citizens. We will ensure that, you're not mistreating our people, but innovate, we will follow with the regulation. And especially on technology side, you cannot start with the regulation and then expect innovation.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Professor Bezi has a lot of ideas on this. Professor Bezi is from Carnegie Mellon University. He's the Associate Director here at the Carnegie Mellon University Africa. He's also a Distinguished Service Professor in Engineering, and he has 2 decades experience on both the business strategy side as well as the tech side. And he's been in Africa for a very long time. I was interested to find out that you taught at the National University of Congo or Zaire at the time. You have a PhD from Louvain in Belgium. Professor Bezi, tell me, are we, you work at CMU here in Africa, one of the few universities of that level. Are we producing, and I'm not talking yet at the level of children to change the mindset, but at a university master's level, are we producing the type of people who will create industries? I'm interested in that.
Yes, definitively. The question is, are we producing enough and fast enough to close the gap? A couple of years ago, the director of the World Bank gave a very interesting number. In South Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, there are about 82 engineers, researchers, scientists per million people. That is to compare with 1,500 in countries like in Europe or America. So the gap is more than 1 order, it's 2 orders of magnitude. It's huge. So what we do here is really that, is bringing those people at the master level, at the level of skills where they can then execute their ideas. It is my experience that African people are in general much more innovative and creative than our people back home. Back home when I have a problem, I go on Amazon and I find a solution. When I'm in a village and I have a problem, I have to solve it myself. That translates in a much more innovative and creative spirit. The challenge is then when you have that idea, you need to translate it into some technology, some solution. That requires skills. No offending my colleague from Kenya here, speaking about M-Pesa, was the idea of 2 Kenyan students. Unfortunately, they didn't have the technical skills to actually execute that idea, which is quite complex technically, and as a result, the patent is a British patent and not an African patent, and I know you're addressing that. But we don't want that in the future. We want Africans to get the money from their ideas, and so the gap there are the skills. And it's a huge piece of work, and you said, you don't want me to speak about the children, but I think we all agree is that's where you start, right? That's where you start to create the awareness of IT, because if somebody has never touched technology in his life, how can you expect them to use it, right? And I think a speaker will speak about that after me.
And is it enough if we come to the idea of putting technology in the hands of our children young, is it enough to give them tabs at a very young age when their teachers are not well versed in this technology? What is the strategy? Because I think even in different countries, we're struggling to find the right formula. What do we just put it in and say that the teachers will catch up later? How do we make sure that we are actually creating an innovation environment for children at a young age?
Yeah, you address a very interesting point there. There has been maybe some misconception, instead of 1 laptop per child, maybe we should have started 1 laptop per teacher before giving it to the kids. But you should not underestimate the capability of kids to very quickly learn technology. And at the end of the day, I attended meetings in schools where the kids were there teaching their parents how to use the computer, which is a great way to put them forward. The children are the hope of this continent. There's no other continent in the world that will have the youth that this continent will produce. Can we now get them ready for technology? Is the big bet for the next 5 to 10 years. If we can do that, if they can take the future in their hands, we will avoid the new colonization of Africa by the Western world by having the African people developing their own solution. Because the African people have a major advantage of any other people like me, is that they understand their problems much better than anybody else. And the problems in Africa are quite different than those of the rest of the world. You will never be able to really develop a solution for Africa from Silicon Valley or from Paris or whatever.
And so is it wrong to...
We've trained our teachers.
The minister is saying they've trained their teachers. How do we make sure that we are creating the type of, if I can use the word Silicon Valley, but this type of environments that are not just the infrastructure? How do we look at the business side? I know Andela and Dot are going to talk about that as well, but if we are just producing, mass producing, you know, a university like CMU has quite an advantage, not just because of what they're learning, but the network, etc. What happens to the universities, public universities that are mass producing 4,000 people graduating in computer science? How does that turn into a business opportunity for themselves, but also for the ecosystem within which they work, especially in the country? It's not enough just to produce computer science graduates.
Yes, so first I'd like to kill the duck of Silicon Valley in Africa, okay? People say that don't understand what it is. But I won't spend my time on that. I can speak about what we do. What we do, we have very integrated relationship with the industries. And unfortunately, I don't see that in many African universities. Recently, a business person came to a country I won't mention and wanted to know what the IT companies were in that country. And she went to meet with the head of the Department of Computer Science of the National University of that country, asking, can you give me the names of the IT companies in this country? And the answer was, I know none of them. If you come to my office, on my desk, because I'm not a well-organized person, you will see thousands of business cards of people we meet with. So, and that's, as a result of that, you know, to be practical, 100 of our students, all of them have a job immediately when they graduate. 9 of them are pursuing PhD outside of Africa, but they will come back, and all others are working here in Africa. How do we do that? Our students spend
for them in the future. Today, traditional business functions like sales, marketing, finance management, project management, those things that span multiple business segments, all use ICT skills in all continents. In people the ability to understand and use those tools. But beyond that, we know the next generation is going to be invented. It's going to be created out of somebody's imagination because they've had the spark of an idea, because they've been exposed to something. We'll need skills. There'll be the programmers, the software engineering people, data scientists, cybersecurity people. They'll have the skills that are needed to create the next Microsoft here in Africa. Why not? There's no particular reason that that can't happen. I love the brilliance is distributed equally. I think that's a fascinating and very comment. We often lose sight of that. Not everybody has the same opportunity, even if they have the brilliance evenly distributed. And what we're focused on is trying to bring opportunity. So at Microsoft, for the last few years, we've been running a program here in Africa called For Africa, built on 3 pillars: access, innovation, and skills. And it's all about trying to partner entrepreneurs to teach, to bring out capabilities, the creativity to provide problems and take advantage of the opportunities that are here locally. The program has a project called App Factory, where we have people that come together and they build and try to be the entrepreneurs. 87% of those graduates have secured full-time jobs within 3 months of graduating. We've got a range of free courses for training. We've got a program called My Skills for Africa, which is basically a mentoring program for Microsoft employees to work with anybody who wants to participate. And we have an internship program that supplies interns to enterprises on the continent. Today, this continent holds nearly 1/4 of the potential workforce for the world. And as I think about the problem or the opportunity of digital skills in closing the gap, I just imagine what it will be like if all of those people are equipped to tackle the world of the opportunities that this fourth industrial revolution is making possible. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And right on that, I think we were discussing earlier the jobs of the future. So I want to invite Ala Kajangwe to give a few remarks on that. And speaking as yourself, a Rwandan young technology with background all over the place, tell us a little bit about the jobs of the future, as well as digital skills.
Okay, good afternoon all. Thank you, Natalie. Maybe not so young, but African private company. So I'm the founder and CEO of Wiredin, and we are mostly focused on BPO work, business processing outsourcing. This literally means that our clients are outside of Rwanda, they're outside of Africa, clients in Japan, Germany, the US, and whatnot. So in the discussion we were having earlier, it was about defining what the demand is today, right? And my intervention in the pre-panel was that we cannot today say what that demand is, right? Because with the trends in technology, right, we've been talking about AI, big data, we cannot predict what the digital skills required will be in the future, right? So in my opinion, the way we design our education system, our training environments, has to be a bit proactive, right? So since we don't know what tomorrow is going to look like, are you going to train someone as a software developer, as an app, smartphone developer? Or are you going to equip them with the capability to learn on their own, to upskill? I think some of the panelists have touched on this, right? Is this what we're going to equip? I'm not saying the usual sciences and technical training are not required, but we need to think a bit further, right? And actually start at the earlier age. I think Professor Besut was touching on this, is yes, training is important, but is it all that we're going to have to do, right? But there is also making people self-aware that tomorrow is going to be different. So you need to prepare yourself for what tomorrow is going to look like. And that, in my opinion, the only way to prepare yourself for that is, by making sure that you're able to learn on the fly, on your own, right? So this is one point. I would like to touch a little bit on how basically the topic of the talk of the panel today is digital skills, develop them, right? So, but experience is what makes a good engineer. Experience is what makes a good developer. Do we have enough companies today on the African continent to provide this experience, this practical hands-on experience, right? As Wiredin, basically, we believe our business model kind of solves this problem because we put ourselves, the clients are outside of Africa, Japan, US, and whatnot, but the developers, the engineers are Rwandans, they are Guineans, and other African countries that we've been fortunate to work with. Now, the other side of the coin is for some of the critical skills that we need right now, immediately, because with experience it takes some time, right? Do we wait until we develop those skills, right? We've talked about the brain drain and how you bring back these skills, right? So at Wiredin also, we've been working on a platform. It's called Rebrain. I think the MC kind of used that, and I was like, wow, that's the name of our platform right there. So today this week we've launched this platform that we've called Rebrain. Basically, Rebrain, what Rebrain does is it looks at, some studies are saying that there is about 3 million African engineers, scientists, and people with tertiary education that live outside of the African continent. These are people that have made their lives in the developed world, but they still have tremendous amount of skills, and they still have, and I believe so, they still need this connection. They still have this connection to the African continent. They're looking at how they can contribute back. And if the only way to contribute back is to ask them to come back home, we'll get mixed results. However, if we can tap into their minds, into their expertise, even if it's 10%, 20% of their time, right? By going on this platform, and so basically what the platform does is it pairs institutions with these specific skills that are out there. If it's an accountant, if it's a software engineer, if it's an aerospace engineer that works at Boeing or at NASA, you're not going to ask them to come back for the same reason that the Honorable Minister from Kenya said. You will not be able, right now, you'll not be able to compete with them on the pay area. However, can they help your aerospace industry from wherever they are? Because they are Kenyans, because they are Rwandans, because they are Senegalese, can they contribute a little bit of their time, of their skills, to help you move forward, right? Even if it's 1 inch, but it's 1 inch forward. Right? So those would be my remarks today, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. So I want to know how strict, are you kicking us off already? Okay, you have 3 minutes, but I would like to take one burning question. Who has a burning question that we can, oh wow, okay. There's one gentleman who raised his hand. Do we have a microphone quickly for the burning question? No microphone. Okay, speak loudly.
Education is key. What we need is experience, but you need time to build experience, right? My question about the internship, I think the CMU made it very clear that we need to help our graduate connect with the industry. Through internship, which I hate, I think we need to use a better word. Internship is not working because people need paid before internship so that we make it having more value. And how do you build an ecosystem where educational institutions like CMU, EMS, where I'm coming from, University of Rwanda, can talk to the industry so that we facilitate that connection? Not through internship. Internship with a policy that I've learned right now makes it very difficult because they don't have experience, therefore their pay will be like, we don't pay you. That's number one. Number two, in terms
Only one question, and I can say that because we work together. Okay, next. We have 3 questions. We're taking another question.
Thank you very much. My name is Grace, and I'm a global shaper, World Economic Forum. I'm Rwandan, but my comment and question perhaps would represent the concerns of young people across Africa. What Michel Bezi referred to as the need of a creation of an ecosystem that's going to serve Africa's innovative, talent, I think is something that we really need to push for, because if we as Africa continue to operate independently, and we have a few countries emerging, we have talent being developed everywhere. In some cases, the economies are able to provide meaningful work for those young people. In other economies, it's not possible. But if we are able to pull together as an African continent and be able to open up both for the world and also for the opportunities that are being created, I think that will go a long way towards resolving the issue of demand for jobs. And I think the question then goes to the ministers who are on the panel. This is an African platform. What's going to be done in the next few years to get us closer to an ecosystem, an African ecosystem that's going to enable Africans to work across Africa and also open up for the opportunities that the Minister of Kenya referred to with global platforms.
Okay, last question. Do we have someone over here? We have someone in the back, in the middle here.
Hi, my name is Tak. I'm from Japan, and we also teach coding using our online platform. And I've been in Rwanda for the past 2 weeks to do some market research and find out the community, developer community in this country, Rwanda. But what I've felt in the past weeks is that in this country, there's not a very strong community where all the developers can gather and talk not only about like engineering skills, but also about creating new services or like new ideas. So my question is, how do you think we can create a community, strong community of developers, not just in Rwanda, but also in the entire Africa? Okay, thank you.
All right. I know she has a burning question. I'm going to make an exception here. Very quickly, if you can.
Bonjour, je vais m'exprimer en français, j'espère que ça ne va pas déranger. Donc, je viens du Cameroun et moi j'ai une question par rapport à tout ce qui concerne la formation. On a un problème au niveau de tout ce qui ne touche pas les hard skills. Donc, tout ce qui est par exemple communication digitale, marketing digital et tout. On a un problème de reconnaissance. Donc, on forme des gens, je travaille dans un tech hub, on forme des gens à tout ce qui est soft, si je peux dire ça comme ça. Mais après, il y a un problème de reconnaissance au niveau académique ou même au niveau professionnel. Pour ceux qui enseignent, voilà, ou alors qui vont vouloir une réelle expérience. Parce que nous, on forme techniquement et ça complète vraiment le côté académique.
For the questions. So as we wrap up, as we answer these questions, I want you to also think about your before we end. Just to recap, the questions are: how do we redefine internships so that the current model is not working, it's not successful? How do we redefine internships so that they found? For the ministers, a very difficult question. How do we get to from statements to a real digital market where we have the ecosystem on a Pan-African level? The developer communities, I think there are many around the continent, so maybe we'll have when we tackle that question as well. And the last one around how do we certify what we call soft skills, but are really important if you're running a startup or any other business for universities. I'm not even sure universities consider soft skills important in computer engineering. Maybe Professor Bezi can correct me on that. So how do we...
Harambee is an organization that's trying to create skills out of South Africa, and they've done some analysis, and for all the jobs every government's trying to create, there will actually not be enough jobs. So I think we also just have to be open to the fact that we have to create skills and opportunities that we can compete in the global marketplace that is sitting in Douala on your laptop with those certifications. The pilot we did with Google.
Soft skills are taken as important as hard skills, which are essential when leaving the university walls. So let's start with Wambui.
And before I answer, so sorry, I just have to make a really quick point. So something that we have to realize and just come to terms with, in as much as I keep hearing about this constraint of geography and boundaries, our workspace is the internet. Like, this is where the future is going. Your question around Cameroon, and actually, if I can also quote, Harambee is an organization that's trying to create skills out of South Africa, and they've done some analysis, and for all the jobs, there will actually not be enough jobs. So I think we also just have to be open to the fact that we have to create skills and opportunities that we can compete in the global market. voila, on your laptop with those certifications. The pilot we did with Google included getting to Audacity themselves were surprised that this talent actually existed in Africa, and they themselves hired some of the developers that went through the Nigeria platform. We included getting to a Udacity certification, and Udacity themselves were surprised that this talent actually existed in Africa, and they themselves hired some of the developers that went through the Nigeria platform. We have developers all over, including in really far away from being recognized, but also in Ghana and certainly in the countries that we have ecosystem. So to the question of the developer community, yes, physical developer community that you might be accustomed to where you're coming from, but they exist. We've also hired over 40 senior developers. These are people who are driving the meetups. They're the ones who are driving, and not all meetups have to necessarily be in person, but they're driving community. They're on WhatsApp groups, exchanging code bits and being. Perhaps I challenge where you're looking for them, but they do exist. And I do feel, again, to the comment around, is Andela participating in the brain drain? Show me another company outside of South Africa and Egypt that can say they have over 600 developers who come into the office every single day, roll up their sleeves and write code for a living. So we are creating.
Okay, thank you. I'll pick up on the internship question. And I think if we can look at internship as something for the 21st century, what is that apprenticeship model of the 21st century? So I know of experiences from my country, Canada, and you talked about this as well, where universities are working very closely with the private sector. Private sector leaders are people in their companies, because they know that the young people are the disruptors, the tech savvy, and of course the bulk of the population. And so they engage them fully in back and forth experience. And this is certainly doable and rewarding for the company and rewarding for the young person who then becomes employed as well. What we can do at scale is the bridge from school to work, and the concept of an internship or in your community being paid, building digital skills of the citizens from a scale perspective. The Ambassadors program over the next 3 years will recruit 5,000 young Rwandan men and women who will impact 2 million citizens building their digital skills. We've done the proof of concept at 15,000. We've got a system in place to scale because the local governments have bought into it and the people have bought into it, and this is doable. Invest in this talent right across the continent. The money is there to invest. We used to have in some countries national work programs. Ghana, because there's a win-win for the youth to have experiential learning, to learn to navigate the disruptive world of work that's going on, have resiliency skills, project management skills, innovation and creativity. Doable. It's just a mindset shift, perhaps, to make that investment.
Professor Bezi?
About that question for universities accepting...
And your closing remarks.
Okay. Bonjour madame, je vais parler en anglais parce que la majorité des gens ici parlent anglais, j'imagine, ça ne vous dérange pas. So the problem is, you know, we live in a society where you have to recognize. Part of that recognition is based on the reputation of where those people have been educated. I'm lucky to work in a university called Carnegie Mellon, who has an international reputation. So when you have a degree from Carnegie Mellon, I'm not trying to be arrogant here, but that's how the system works. So when we receive people in our program from organizations like yours, where, no offense to you, we don't have that reputation. Importantly, and that's what Alain was saying, more important than the skills, we look at the experience. The majority of our students that we recruit have several years of professional experience. And that tells us much more, frankly said, than a degree. So that would be my advice. I'm also in academic very systematic program that tells that to do a master's degree, and unfortunately I cannot change that. That's the way it is. So that's my answer. I only have one message for the audience. It's great to think about a fourth industrial revolution for Africa. And yes, we must have these visions. And Africa has a tremendous advantage that there's no legacy IT in place. And so you can jump to these new technologies much more easily than they can do back when. However, you know, one of my executives in my company where I was working before one day told me, you know, Michel, a vision that you cannot execute is hallucination. So my very simple message, before we even look into the fourth revolution, and we must look at that, don't get me wrong, why don't we try to get the third revolution going on in Africa? The majority of small and medium enterprises in this continent are not automated today. That is a very low-hanging fruit that we must address first, because they generate most of the job. If they are not automated, by not automated, I mean, for example, when I go to a grocery store in Kigali, the lady is writing the of paper with the price, and then with a calculator, she calculates. And as a result, they run out of stock on a regular basis. They don't have the data to manage their business. They cannot grow. Let's tackle that very simple problem first. I'm a co-founder of KLab, and I see the young guys in KLab scratching their heads. What can I be the next Mark Zuckerberg coming with that brilliant idea? Well, just automate those small and medium enterprises. That's much easier, and there are millions of them, and if you do it the right way.
Honorable Monsieur.
So thank you again for this opportunity. On ICT practitioners, in our country, we have taken time to look and say there are existing jobs that people have been doing, they've been getting training for, they go through the educational sector, and you come out with a degree. But we've also seen new jobs. We have a company called Cloud Factory. Over 100 US and European companies that they service. This range from describing how the drones are flying, what they're seeing, autonomous vehicles, and all manner of things that today that's on the cutting edge. And therefore you need to find those skills and rating them. So some practitioners bill is something we put forward that begins to allow you to rate people so that you can say here are new and emerging skills. Institutions, these are the technical vocational training institutions, to ensure that those skills are then being passed on into the educational sector. This conference, organized by our heads of state and chaired by His Excellency President Kagame, is one of the big things that is going to drive Africa forward. 33 countries are able to come together in some of these issues and begin to implement. There's a question of us being able to talk about a lot of things, but are we implementing? The One Area Network is an example of where the countries came together and said no roaming in these countries of Smart Africa. We've been forced to do that. We're now talking about mobile money interoperability. But the biggest thing out of it is that we're getting a single digital market. Now we've crossed the 600 million mark. Which means if you're building a business, if you're looking at opportunities, you have a large market. While I was at Google, one of into very many small countries, it was easier to just go, say, to India or to China, where you have one regulation and you can be able to do this work. Africa was a lot of hard work. Your business can grow and you can service people anywhere. I'm happy to hear Wamboi, very happy to say that really we have one market. There's no fragmentation. You're using technology. And Michel's view that countries must speak, countries must specialize is true. We must do that. And that's what Smart Africa has done. You've seen different countries have taken specializing and moving on. Of course, there's politics that goes with that, but we've actually started well. The execution is in progress. And I'm optimistic that we're going to see things move a lot faster than if we Thank you.
Honorable Ouattara.
Merci. Pour insister sur l'employabilité des jeunes, je pense qu'il est important et sur quoi nous sommes interpellés, il s'agit de la transformation digitale des métiers traditionnels et aussi de la création de nouveaux emplois dans le domaine du numérique. Et l'Afrique reste un marché au début donc de sa transformation digitale. Pour revenir à un pays comme le Burkina Faso, 80% de la population pratique l'agriculture. De créer des produits et des services pour impacter cette catégorie de personnes. Et donc, il y a ne serait-ce que ces 80%, la plupart ne parlent ni français ni anglais, ils ne savent ni lire ni écrire. Donc il s'agit par exemple pour les startups de créer, je dirais, des vidéos en langue locale sur l'utilisation de la machine. Parce qu'il est établi que ce n'est pas avec la DABA qu'on va améliorer l'agriculture. Donc il s'agit justement des outils pour leur permettre d'utiliser ces machines pour impacter l'agriculture, par exemple. Et donc, c'est dire qu'il y a encore du potentiel pour ces compétences que nous prévoyons donc de construire. L'Afrique reste, à mon avis, un marché potentiel et pour impacter sur les différents secteurs. Là, j'ai parlé de l'agriculture, mais qui reste un vaste chantier. Et tous les jours, nous parlons de la transparence, nous parlons des élections, l'utilisation de la blockchain pour améliorer électorale et tout. L'Afrique reste un potentiel. C'est pour dire à la jeunesse qu'il y a un grand potentiel pour la transformation digitale de l'Afrique. Merci.
Merci. So thank you very much for participating in this panel. I want to thank our I think some of the things we said is that we have to start digital skills young if we're ever going to be able to keep up with our large population coming soon. 1 in 4 children in 2050 will be African. We have to talk about the ecosystem and using the continent as instead of countries, and in that sense also attacking low-hanging fruit, loads of low-hanging fruit in automation for SMEs. As the minister also said, now we are ignoring the obvious things to try and compete maybe at a global scale, but there are many problems that we can solve, as well as how do we redefine how to get experience for people so that they're able to not just solve local problems, but go into new areas of work. So thank you very much for following, and I hope we're able to continue right after the panel to discuss. Thank you so much.
Yes, I've been here at 3:30